Philippines, otherwise known as Venus, and Dreams from Indonesia.
Both very skilled in their own roles respectively, but you cannot deny the effect, the impact that Venus is able to bring to his team. So Villaluna will have to try and replicate the same kind of success, whereas Dreams, he has a lot to actually try and do for his team. And before that, Taz and Del Rosario, yet another very intense matchup, because both of these players have insane mechanics, but I think a bit of a contrast in their approach to these big fights.
Well, Del Rosario, a very notable name in the Mlbb world. He's made a mark on this Mlbb stage, in the international stage, as the best utility jungler there is. With all these tank junglers, the man who introduced the world to the Demon Slayer emblem, basically, and who was the pioneer of that meta, versus Taz, a man that's still very, very new, a rookie player, you can kind of call him, as right now he's making his debut as a jungler for the international stage. Last time we saw him domestically, he was playing as a mid laner for EVOS.
But he was a jungler before that, so there's no lack of mechanical skill in the hands of Taz. But as we mentioned, experience, time, that will be the main concern here, and we'll have to see if he can match up, because as we just highlighted, his opponent is pretty significant, man. I don't know how else to put it.
And that's the thing, right? Right now, for this Indonesian roster, they're up against such veterans, the veterans here from Philippines. You can already see just from the confidence in the interview earlier on when Masgier asked them the question, "Are you guys ready?" Psychons answered, "Yeah, we're ready." Venus though,
Super ready.
Super ready. That was the answer. No hesitation whatsoever as they walked into the air stage to face off against one another. And I think you can kind of see that later in game one. This is definitely going to be the pace starter, right? This is going to set the pace for the entire series and maybe perhaps the day.
Ooh, they're starting the day strong for sure. And I think, as you mentioned, funny enough, it seems to be a bit of a similar case. Experience being the main deciding factor, and the same double-edged sword. Will our team from the Philippines here actually have enough data to gather from this very young, very new, very versatile team from the Indonesian side?
We'll see, once again. You know, in terms of that multi-dimensional level, when it comes down to the hero pools, the drafts as well, you can kind of give EVOS or this Indonesian team some room to play with, right? Taz, again, many times, he's played the mid lane as well, so it's, I don't know if this is going to happen, but in MPL ID, last time they played with 2 jungler players and 2 players who could actually play the mid lane, they really like to flex this. Very similar to how Malaysia actually plays, right? They really like to just role swap here and there depending on what heroes they get and what comfort heroes they get on certain players.
Malaysia for sure has been able to put that to absolutely good use and completely confuse their opponents, especially when it comes to that drafting phase. Because now you have no idea who exactly it is you're trying to target in that particular role. So maybe Indonesia can try and attempt the same thing, but it's the same question. Against versatility, against new blood, explosiveness, and I think it makes for a very exciting matchup.
And when we're talking about versatility, for the team Philippines, it's definitely there too, right? We've seen Wise pull off crazy heroes like the Guinevere jungle, the Valentina jungle as well in MPL Philippines when they actually captured the title. That's the thing. The creativity, the macro skill, and obviously, I gotta mention this, the shot calling of Villaluna is definitely the highlight for Blacklist International and for Team Philippines right now. Their entire team feels very solid. I've always spoken about Blacklist International and here Team Philippines as a team that individually might not shine as bright as they do just together. You know?
Right.
Together, they really show that MLBB is truly a team game. One person can shine, but in this Filipino team, it's all 5 members shining together.
I think everyone shines for sure, but the presence of the team, especially a team that knows how to play around you, that just amplifies your impact so much. And it's almost like you can't really put a name on who exactly is that key member in the side of the Philippines, because every single person has to pull their own weight, and that is what makes them so dominant. How united they are and how dominant they are as 5.
And it makes it so difficult for us casters and for everyone in the production, right?
Exactly.
Who's the MVP when they win? If they win. You just don't know who's the MVP because they work so well together as a team. But meanwhile, I actually do want to mention this. For Indonesia, this new revamped EVOS roster, individually, mechanically, they are monsters, man. Taz, Dreams, the way they play and the heroes they play are always these flashy heroes that can turn the tides of a fight with just one fight. They really like to actually flip a coin every time they go for a fight, right? If they're in the lead, they still going for the coin flip fights. If they're behind, you can definitely expect them to make some risky moves to take that lead back towards their side.
And that tendency for Indonesia to just go very aggressively and in a way gamble a bit in different situations, that definitely is a big factor where the Philippines need to be a bit more careful, because if they predict that it's going to happen, the Indonesians can use that as a feint, right? They can bait out certain skills, certain resources. They can get control purely by baiting out or acting like they're gonna do or go for a very aggressive maneuver and then just wait for the next opportunity. So I think the mind games definitely come in strong here against a team that can just go very differently, right? They can do so many different things, almost contrastingly from game 1 to game 2.
But before we continue with our talk and our analysis, ladies and gentlemen, Iesf 14th World Esports Championships is supported by wonderful Indonesia, Kemenpora, NOC, and Connie. We would also like to give a special thanks to all of our sponsors here from JHL Group, JHL Auto, Nusa Pay, DAS, Gudang Crypto, Pertamina, Taiwan Excellence, Hydro Coco, Merusaka Nusa Dua. We also have IndiHome, Telkomsel, HIN, Episode Hotel, Mineski Global, Indonesia Football E-League, ESID, and Lemon ID.
And of course, there's media partners that have cooperated with us and provided so much help and benefit. There's our friends from Net TV, Trans7, Detikcom, Esport ID, Video.com, Dunia Games, Dance TV, Dance Play, Merah Putih, Bola Score, and Kami Bijak. So very massive thank you for all the help and support. But just like that, Mirko, soon we shall jump straight into our very highly expected matchup. And it's only game number 1, setting the tone.
Well, I'm expecting a banger. I'm expecting a crazy game here, but we'll see. Honestly, Arashi, right now, before we actually jump into the drafts, I do want to ask you, as an analyst, give us a prediction, man.
Well, you gotta put me on the spot like that, bro. Come on. If you say as an analyst, well, the statistics, the history speaks for itself. But of course, being a passionate Mobile Legends player, I really enjoy the idea that our expectations gets completely overturned. So I think up here, it's the Philippines, but down here, it's Indonesia all the way, man. Can't blame me. It is what it is.
Philippines vote, that means.
Yeah.
For this matchup, it's Philippines for Arashi. And I think I might have to agree this time, Arashi, because of the experience that this team has, because of the veterans here from Team Philippines. We'll see how it plays out, though, because Mlbb can go either way, especially this meta that relies heavily on crazy skirmishes. But without further ado, are you guys ready? Give us your predictions in the live chat as well. Are you Team Philippines with Pinas Lang Malakas, or are you Team Indonesia with Indo Pride? Let us know in the chat below, because we'd love to see who has more support here online before we get into the player cams right now and we get into the drafts with Team Philippines in the blue side and Indonesia on the red.
Off the bat, the Fanny ban for the Philippines, definitely trying to curb in the aggression. Taz on the side of Indonesia is a very infamous Fanny player with a lot of mechanical skill. We've seen glimpses of it. Unfortunately, not as much success, but the Philippines respect that potential and ban it away. Indonesia, though, they might be going for the same strategy that Malaysia was going for. Ban out that Digi and get all the crowd control that favors the team that wants to go aggressively, that wants to be a lot more explosive and unpredictable.
You can already see, like you mentioned, right? Indonesia are trying their best to take away the heroes that can really disengage from all the crazy engages that they usually look to bring. Atlas becomes a ban towards Indonesia from the Philippines, knowing that, again, Dreams is very, very good on that hero. An absolute monster when it comes down to going for those cheeky engages, those flashy plays as a roamer.
Those unexpected plays. And speaking of unexpected, when you talk about Dreams, one of the heroes he doesn't really get to play a lot, but he can actually have a huge impact on, is that Kadita. So I wonder if that is still a possibility, as Indonesia will ban out that Benedetta, having a lot of mobility, a lot of wave clear, a lot of impact that can be translated, can be transferred to the side lanes or even the jungle. So they will not want to deal with that. And for the Philippines, it's going to be Leomord. Whoa.
The Leomord ban, again, this is a hero that we've seen many times before. Leomord, I think, is the most banned hero so far in Iesf. But it's already a very interesting ban. It's a very interesting draft phase for both of these teams. So far, from the 3 matches we have casted from all 6 games, we haven't really seen that Atlas and the Benedetta in the first phase of bans, right? We usually see the Martis, we usually see the 1-1, and both of those heroes have been left up for grabs right now, with Valentina as well, still open. Indonesia need to choose whether they want to ban the Valentina or the 1-1, or perhaps just leave both open so that they can trade it out. Remember, on the red side, you do get 2 picks. Meanwhile, Philippines will have to choose. It's going to be the 1-1 ban from Indonesia. Valentina wide open, especially on the hands of Team Philippines, which we know can be flexed in the mid lane and to the jungle.
You have to wonder if both these teams have access to information that we do not, as the public do not, right? Because a lot of these bans, yes, they are also meta picks, but they seem slightly targeted as well. Valentina will be the main pick for the Philippines. It's very strong, it has good burst and utility, and it will allow to play a bit of a mind game and confuse the drafting phase for Indonesia. But, ooh, the Kaja that we've seen being prioritized a lot by different teams. And as you mentioned, the Martis as well. There are a lot of options that Indonesia can try and use right now.
Yeah. Indonesia, though, with the Kaja shadow pick, we haven't seen the Kaja go to the jungle here in Iesf, which is pretty interesting, right? Because if you take a look at your ranked games, if you go on and play ranked, you should probably see a lot of Kajas in the jungle. And right now, I do believe Indonesia are going to pick up the Kaja to flex. We've seen it in the mid lane, we've seen it in the side lane as well, and even as a roamer. But the Faramis is going to be a pickup, another solid pickup for Indonesia. Meanwhile, Philippines, with no hesitation, instantly just lock in the Fredrin and the Beatrix. Another comfort pick for Philippines for their gold laner.
The Filipino sniper. He is here to play for sure. And looking at the composition so far, it does seem like the Philippines have a lot more of a combo situation. They do have the big engage with a taunt from Fredrin, and they can combo the Beatrix, not only using the sniper, but with the Nibiru's Passion as well, which is a lot stronger right now. For Indonesia, it seems like they have a better mix of pick-off potential as well. But of course, we have no idea just yet which lane are these heroes going to be put into. And whoa, that is a huge song for the first time, I think, in Iesf.
First time in Iesf, the Yuzong makes his debut here in Bali. Just some dive, I guess, dive potential from the side of Indonesia to stop Beatrix from free hitting, and obviously just threaten that back line. Threaten the back line. As now we are going to be entering the second phase of the bans. Indonesia with the first ban. They're already looking towards, I feel, more of a dive composition with this whole comp. Indonesia with the Faramis, the Kaja, and the Yuzong, they're going to try their best to actually look for the all-in team fights, right? They do not want these team fights to go to distance, because if it does, Philippines have the heroes to take it.
So far, they have a lot more DPS for sure. So the longer the fight draws out, the more the combo that Indonesia is going for will start faltering. Right now, we've seen a similar strategy, right? Faramis as well as the Kaja, but usually it's paired with an engage that can bring everyone together and allow that Kaja to have optimal damage output in those big fights. But now, for now at least, we haven't seen anything like that from the side of Indonesia. Leslie has been picked by the Philippines, so denying another sniper from Indonesia. And Lolita, actually, will be the ban for Indonesia. So maybe they are looking at a hero with a lot of projectiles for now.
And I actually expected the Leslie to be picked up by Indonesia early on, right? The final pick of the first phase, the Yuzong, I expected it to be the Leslie. But now, because it has been left open, hasn't been picked up, Indonesia are going to have to start prioritizing Brands' hero here as they go for the ban towards the Paquito. Oh, 2 bans towards the XP lane, I do believe, with the Benedetta and the Paquito. Philippines still without a jungler. But I think Indonesia are just trying to just take that Paquito away, knowing that it's a very good flex pick. And currently, Philippines, they have the Fredrin, they have the Valentina. We've seen Wise play both Fredrin and Valentina in the jungle. So that's the threat that Indonesia really needs to think of constantly. And you can already see Philippines with a very smart approach to the second bans, trying to shut brands down here with 2 marksman bans. Leslie and Claude, only the Iritho being ready, opened up here for Team Indonesia. And Arashi, the Iritho up against the Beatrix here, up against so much dive as well. A lot of CC. Might be a risky pick
for the side of Indonesia.
But it is the best pick, in my opinion, looking at it right now, with all the bans.
Maybe something crazy will come up, but it definitely shows that the Philippines want to have advantage in the late game. That Leslie and Claude are both very late game heroes, so maybe Indonesia can throw a curveball and pick a very aggressive early game hero instead. But no, it will be the Melissa. It still has a lot of AoE and a lot of potential to push away all these heroes that can pose a threat to the roster, at least the backline of Indonesia. So a very counter-smart approach as well. But finally, Philippines are going to round out their team composition. It's going to be Lapu Lapu. Will it be the signature as well?
You got to do it, man. You got to do it, man.
Do it. Come
Philippines hovering over the signature pick. The M3 Blacklist International skin. But they would just hover over the Matilda. Wow. Decided to go for the Matilda, maybe for game number 1 here. Maybe they're saving the best for last, Arashi. But
I can't believe
there's already a good show from the Philippines, showing that even as a shadow pick, it got us all hyped. It got the viewers all hyped as well, 100%. Team Indonesia with that Melissa pick, though, will have a bit of that disengaged potential and a little bit of pressure, actually, in that gold lane. It is a winning lane for the Melissa in a straight-up 1v1. And now they are going to have to pick either a roamer or a jungler, depending on where the Kaja is going to go.
They require some kind of crowd control, man. They have a lot of ways to actually facilitate their fights, but when it comes to forcing the Philippines into their own game, into fights that they want to take, it's going to be a bit difficult without any secure, and it will be the Gusion picked up. Hang on here. Let's take a very close look at the battle spells, because that will tell a very interesting story. Okay, all right.
It is going to be the Kaja in the roam, as we mentioned before. The flex potential for the Kaja. We've seen it in the mid lane yesterday. Now we're seeing it in the roam position with the Gusion in the jungle.
Wow.
Based on both of the drafts, Philippines with a bit of both. So both of the drafts has a lot of dimensions to play with, a lot of win conditions to play around, with the dive being mentioned before. The flex potential for the Kaja. We've seen it in the mid lane yesterday. Now we're seeing it in the roam position with the Gusion in the jungle.
Wow.
Based on both of the drafts, Philippines with a bit of both. So both of the drafts has a lot of dimensions to play with, a lot of win conditions to play around with
of the Philippines, because we know strategic, slow maneuvers. The Philippines have a bit of an edge. At least that's what the public will believe.
Well, we'll see how the match plays out here, Rashi, as we are going to get ready for the game. We're going to get ready to enter the portal, to enter the land of dawn for Team Philippines versus Indonesia on the opening match of day number 2. We're going to dive straight into the land of dawn, ladies and gentlemen, for Indonesia versus Philippines.
Wow, honestly, the early game is going to be so important here, because at any moment, right, any one of these teams, they can actually get an advantage, and if they do, both Indonesia and Philippines are notorious for taking that kind of lead and actually using it as efficiently as possible and punishing every single mistake. And if they do that, they can set the tone for the mid to late game all the way since as early as the 2nd or 3rd minute.
You can see in the start here, both teams wanting to go for just a normal start, not really going for anything too aggressive early on. They both just want to clear their camps, get to a point where they can finally actually deal out some damage, the burst, and obviously use those power spikes well. Here, Arashi, with the pathing of both of the junglers, it does feel like they want to play towards the side laners a little bit early as well. We've also seen many times that Del Rosario on the utility junglers really likes to go and clear that gold lane to help the Beatrix out.
Well, the early game, it's going to be so much pressure, so many things for the roamers to do, right? Because in the early game, it's always about how the roamers can facilitate. Will they move towards the gold lane? Will they move towards the mid lane? You know, once you get one of your laners ahead, that will allow you to use that lane as the basis to make plays happen.
Well, here it is once again, 2 minutes in, and it's going to be Team Philippines who has a bit more pressure around a turtle with the Black Dragon form being popped in. It's still going to be Del Rosario who secures the retribution on the turtle. Divine Judgment going to be popped in towards Patapop, but it's not going to work.
That is a very, very tanky hero. And you can see that despite all the burst damage being used by the Indonesian team, you do see that the Lapu-Lapu, man, is just so tanky. And we've seen this from Malaysia yesterday, actually. Formace able to 1v4. Maybe we'll see a similar play out for the Philippines in the bottom side.
2 minutes in, it's already a neutral objective secure for Team Philippines. And now they're going to look, again, just to play it calmly, play it efficiently. And that's exactly what they need to do. They do not need to go for anything too aggressive here when they have the lead.
For the Indonesians, they need to make sure that they abuse that Cult Altar as much as possible. They do have the Black Dragon form as well, so those objective takes are going to be very much in their favor, only if they're able to actually get an advantage and actually capitalize on the fact that they have a bit more crowd control and they have a lot more utility that they can actually abuse to force the Philippines into a tough spot. But of course, if they do go too aggressively, there is a Lapu-Lapu, there is a Valentina, so a lot of counter-engage potential from the side of the Philippines.
Well, here it is, another engage coming in, and that's going to be Dreams taken really low. First blood over to Philippines as they're looking for more. That's the IMU doing work, stealing away to Divine Judgment and picking up another for Imam in the mid lane.
That is what you have to be aware of, man. If you don't want to deal with the engage, you can engage on the engager, and that is exactly what the Philippines have done. They take out Dreams, and they hunt for stragglers afterwards. They have the tempo in the game right now, and if you look at the side lanes, that is where the action will start building up. Because with pressure in all the lanes from the Philippines, they're going to try and cut into the jungle and cut off members of Indonesia from their own backup.
I just really like how Soriano is taking this lane, is approaching this lane, this matchup, right? Up against the Melissa, he knows exactly that he is going to lose out if he goes for these trades, if he goes for these 1v1 duels. So what he does is he swaps over to the Bennett just to clear out the waves, rotates over to help this team, and simultaneously gets even more gold because they're trying their best to actually funnel as much towards Soriano.
And if Soriano gets a bit more items, he can very easily start poking down members from the side of the Indonesians because there's only one real tanky frontline member in Psychots, and if he is too low for a fight, it's going to be very difficult for the Indonesians to try and contest any kind of objective.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here, Villa Luna in the gold lane. They're looking for some plays here up in the gold lane.
The gold lane, for sure, has been the target for a lot of players, but here we go, Bruce Passion.
Soriano picking up a kill, and now Dreams is going to be very, very low. Gets out just barely here, but you can already see the cut coming in from Del Rosario over the top side. There's the flickers over under the tier 2. Dreams not using flicker just yet. Very wise to save that flicker, as he did have a bit of backup.
Oof, as we called it out, man, the side lanes. There you go. Indonesia just a bit too late, a bit too behind when it comes to that pressure, and the Philippines absolutely capitalize and punish anybody who doesn't want to back away from their first turret, and they have taken the first structure, the first objective, and with that, they will have a lot more areas on the map to make plays around, and they do have a lot of very good catch.
This is it, Arashi. This is the meta that we have been mentioning about. The ultimate bonding experience where they group up as 5 into the mid lane. They start to just put in a lot of mid pressure so that they can actually have more room to play in the side waves. 4 members grouping up and always just dap-a-dap in that XP lane solo.
Villa Luna right now, though, has completed that Radiant Armor. That item reduces damage when it comes to multiple instances of damage. So against a Faramis, against a Kaja or the Kushan, it's going to be very good. But look at that.
Pick potential over to Del Rosario when he comes in, using so much damage with the Appraiser's Wrath. taking back a whole lot of HP and outplaying the situation, turning it completely around. It's looking bad for Indonesia, as that's going to be the third turtle over to Philippines with no trades on the board, no turrets, no kills so far.
They put a trigger on that play with the objective to try and force the Philippines' hand, but instead the Philippines has all the answers. A tanky front line, two tanky front lines in fact, and a lot of utility to ensure that their member stays alive, and afterwards they can just chase and take out members of Indonesia one by one, and even then they go for the pressure, and it seems like the Indonesians, they have to try and make a huge play happen or a massive pickoff. But it's going to be very difficult because the positioning from the Philippines is way too good.
The setup, the positioning, and the trigger instantly onto Psychots, picking him up, baiting Indonesia over to that bottom side to pick up a free turret and 2 free kills in the process. It does feel like so far in this game, the Philippines are a step, maybe even 2 steps ahead of Team Indonesia, as Dream's going to get knocked up. Imam looking for that follow-up, just a zone Indonesia away from the tier 2 as they look to start sieging down on every single turret.
The damage difference right now from both teams is just so difficult to deal with. We mentioned how there's only one real front line on the side of Indonesia, and look at what happens to him in a big fight. He gets taken out. The cult altar is so non-existent. The Philippines are able to just burst through it and go on with their day. Soriano right now with the Malefic Roar completed. That is a lot of penetration on top of the already insane amount of damage and burst that the Beachers can bring to the table.
This is what Philippines loves to do when they're ahead, right? They use the distraction that is Dapadap, who's practically currently unkillable on that Lapu-Lapu. They use him as a distraction in the side lane, solo, picking up a turret. Meanwhile, they set up on the other side. Usually, they like to play on the opposite side and use the conceal to catch the enemies off guard. But there, you can see, again, a curveball thrown over to Indonesia, or maybe Indonesia have done their research onto how Philippines likes to play with the lead. They take another step ahead, and they think 2 steps ahead of Indonesia. Right now, again, it's going to be Divine Jump onto the frontliners with a lot of the resources burnt out. It's going to be Cyclops who jumps in and finishes off Soriano in the back lines, splitting Philippines in 2. Imam now flickering out, getting to safety, but all that was for the Lord. It's a 2-for-1 in the end. 2 kills over to Indonesia for a Lord take. Arashi, who's it worth for?
Oof. I think considering the fact that the Philippines are so ahead and they are focusing now more than ever on taking all those structures away from Indonesia, I think the Lord will be very, very beneficial. Unfortunately, they lose their gold leaner as well, which is not ideal. But if you take a look at the items right here, he is on 7,300 gold. As we mentioned, BOD and straight to a Malefic Roar, ensuring that anyone getting caught in his ultimates will get absolutely decimated.
What's another thing that I want to mention is the fact that the kill, 2 kills that Indonesia picked up earlier, was onto 2 members with no bounty. There was no shutdown there. So even though Indonesia were able to find some kills, it was just normal gold. It wasn't the added gold that we usually see. And they get the Lord for that. So if it was a shutdown, I would actually say that Indonesia definitely came out on top in terms of value. But here, Taz might actually be caught, forced to use that ultimate defensively to get out.
And everyone is from the Philippines is available because the death timers are very, very short, and they are going for a siege here where Indonesia don't have a lot of tools to try and counter the poke damage. Slowly but surely, the Philippines is chipping away at the structures and at the EHP bars of the Indonesian players.
It's a good defense by Indonesia. They're able to minimize their losses here, only losing that tier 2 in the mid lane for now. But Brands is going to be zoned away from that mid lane. Philippines looking for that, but look at Psychots with the Petrify. He's able to find 2 on the flanks. Psychots absolutely massive as his engage has started a war that Indonesia can finally win here in this game. 3-for-0 trade as Indonesia look to climb, to crawl themselves back in this game.
Blink and you'll miss it. An engage that gave way for Indonesia to take 3 kills for a trade of none. And along with that, Taz is able to secure the purple buff from the side of the Philippines as well. So now they have a momentum. They have recovered a bit of that gold difference. Only 2K right now. But the Philippines, they are still in the lead. And they are no stranger to these late game situations.
Dreams opening up the map just a bit. Going to be chunked down by Del Rosario. But he is going to be able to back off without having anything taken away. Honestly, looking at it right now, Rashi, Indonesia, their main win condition, we thought it would be Brands on that Melissa. We thought it was going to be the Gushin on the hands of Taz, but it's actually Psychots, the man that has been doubted so many times by everyone.
By the public. I mean, this man has had a very lackluster season in his last performance. That was a performance in the last season, actually, rather. But here, knowing that Indonesia are relying very, very heavily on a very reliable engage, his Yuzong has been critical, but after 2 engages, will Philippines fall for the same trick twice?
Divine Judgment over the Dreams. That's going to be the frontliner taken out. That's going to be that. Oh my god, so much damage onto the Lapu.
Unfortunately, won't be enough, though. And now Indonesia, they're actually backing away, and it will be waiting for the Lord take. And Philippines, they are so good at the Lord dance. Going back and forth, waiting for their opponents to make a mistake, and with such a long-range basic attack on their B-tricks, they can do better.
That's what they were waiting for. The Black Dragon form now baited out. Psychots with a Petrify onto Soriano, who's forced to flicker out, but Psychots jumps in. 1v4, soaking in all the damage and sustaining back up. Top it up, gonna be taken down by Brands, and that's another kill over to Indonesia, who were able to play with the death timers of Dreams really well, with him now respawning. They've taken back the lead if they actually can secure the Lord, which they should be able to. Free Lord over to Indonesia. They're not stopping just yet, though. Concealed play from Indonesia. They back off.
Back off for now, as the orange buff will be contested as well. So the Philippines are now on the back foot. And if you look at the composition, in a way, right, in the big team fights, there's a lot more DPS and utility available in the hands of the Indonesians. After that play, they go for the purple buff as well. And the Philippines have a huge problem on their hands. The Black Dragon form lasts for way too long. The Guiding Wind was used to try and buy some make some distance, buy some more time, but it was not enough. The Philippines must come up with a different solution, a different answer.
A momentum shift in the 13th minute of the game. And now it's Philippines who have their backs against the wall with the Enhanced Lord marching in that top lane. Evil's Legends here, Team Indonesia, are going to look to try to siege them down. Psychots once again with a Black Dragon form as Del Rosario tries his best to keep Psychots at bay. The damage comes through once again for the siege to take place, but that's going to be Dapadap who jumps in with the Bravest Fighter. But it's going to be a good disengage from Indonesia, backing off knowing that they have found some value. They've taken every single tier 2 except for the bottom lane.
And look at how Psychots is playing around with his Petrify, man. He goes in for the Black Dragon form, but he doesn't always use that Petrify. And when you think about it, the Petrify is what makes these engages so dangerous. It guarantees the Furious Dive knockup, and that is what allows Indonesia to just be a lot more elusive. And as we talked about it earlier, this is what is so dangerous. They can feint around, act like they're about to engage a fight, and then back away. The Philippines need to identify the right moment and then adjust accordingly. Do they want to go and fight after the Black Dragon form is down, or do they want to just stall?
Villaluna with that circling eagle over the Brands, but it's going to be baited in with the cold ulcer placed as well. Soriano targeted by the flanks, and that's going to be Taz who picks up the Beatrix. Soriano taken down, Brands in the midst of it all, still life stealing with his fire. Brands is massive. He is an absolute beast as he wins the battle for Indonesia. It's a 4-0 trade. Indonesia with a comeback here with the tides turned completely. Only Villaluna left to defend with the mini wave crashing in. Villaluna going to be brought back by the Shadow Stampede. Villaluna outside of the base, and Indonesia with the Divine Judgment onto Villaluna will go for the base to pick up the first game of the series.
Oh my god, what an upset! It looked like the Philippines were going to cruise to an easy victory, but the Indonesians pull through. 1-0 right now, and they have shown that against all odds, against all the hate and the doubters, they are here to stay.
Give the MVP over to Psychots, man. Wow. What a performance and what a statement here. We predicted Philippines, man. Wow. Oh my goodness gracious.
The caster curse strikes again.
The caster curse strikes
again. You can never make a right prediction. It just does not work like that. Indonesia having a lead, but of course, you know, calm down a bit because the Philippines are no stranger to this position.
What a performance here by Indonesia. But obviously, again, this is something that we spoke about earlier before the game started. We mentioned that for Team Indonesia, this new team that was formed is a very coin flippy team. When they're behind, they will constantly look for these crazy engages, these crazy flanks to turn the tides around, and that's exactly what happened. They coin flipped their way to victory. You mentioned it earlier, Arashi, that Hail Mary play that happened once, getting the Petrify and the Furious Dive onto both of the backliners. It might not be able to, like, Psychots might not be able to land that twice, right? He did it once. I don't think he's going to do it twice, but he did. He didn't need to, actually. All he needed to do was flank. So Soriano gets into position for Taz to pick off.
That is what is so dangerous. If you take a look at the highlights here, the match MVP is going to be Brands, and he, in the early game, was struggling so hard because the Philippines, they know which lane they want to shut down in the early game, but unfortunately, they don't put all the resources on shutting down Psychots, and Psychots turns out to be the main problem for them to deal with. In the late game as well, having an assassin in the early game is a bit difficult because especially against a Fredrin, a fighter in the jungle, it's a bit of a tough matchup. But in the late stages of the game, where your gold laner, your mid laner becomes the main source of damage output, having someone that can delete them in a blink of an eye is definitely an advantage that Indonesia has put to an absolute good use.
Just look at the replay again. First 10 minutes was one-sided, with Philippines absolutely dominating the neutral objective game and even the turrets. But Psychots, with this one play, getting Soriano and Imam, both of the backliners, both of the damage dealers, it practically sealed the deal for their comeback. Philippines got a bit too greedy after that, looking to fight constantly when, again, the way they were able to dominate early on wasn't through these fights. It was through very efficient macro plays across the map, picking up turrets and sieging Indonesia down slowly but surely.
And to make matters worse, their composition, damage comes in big waves of damage. So with a Cult Altar in possession of the Indonesians, they can just deny the pickoff as we saw earlier. Brands was able to be saved by the Cult Altar, and he was able to just outlast all the damage and make a huge comeback happen for the Indonesians. That is the late game that the Indonesians have been hedging their bets on, and it completely paid off. Match MVP Brands from Indonesia on that Melissa. Very patient, very consistent. Every time, any game where he is behind, he will find a way to stay relevant, and we see it yet again.
An absolute beast, man. But we have to give the player spotlight over to Psychots. If it's not Brands, it's definitely Psychots.
He has one death.
He has one death on the Yuzong.
Wow.
Even though he's always diving into that backline, trying to create plays for his team. And personally for me, I would actually say that Psychots is my MVP, right? The performance, the way that he led his team to victory on that Yuzong, a pick that we haven't seen here so far in Iesf in the first day. Coming into the second with their unique draft. A lot of people doubted them as well, but they definitely showed the world that you can't take them lightly, this new revamped EVOS team for Indonesia.
Look at his items. Only the Hunter Strike for a bit of damage, a bit of utility. And then afterwards, it's all defensive because that is his main role. We were concerned because of it, but in a way, they made it work. Only one front line, it doesn't matter because the back line from the Philippines is not safe either. Look at Taz with the full inventory slot. One more item to go, actually. But with the Genius one and Glowing one combo, his daggers are doing a lot of damage, and he has penetration and the Holy Crystal to boot. So at this point, without adequate protection, there is no solution for Soriano to survive from that damage. And to put matters worse, if he is too tunnel vision on Taz, then Psychots will take him out. So the mix of damage and the mix of problems that Indonesia can keep showing and flashing at the Philippines makes it very difficult for them to get a very easy adjustment.
It was a very good game by both of the sides, but again, I do feel like in the end, it was just the battle of strategies, right? It was a battle of styles, honestly, a clash of styles, where for Team Philippines, they really like to go for those macro plays, early dominance, and for Team Indonesia, in very true Indonesian fashion, like to team fight. They go in for these coin flip plays, coin flip team fights when they're behind because they've got nothing to lose. At that point, they only had their base turrets left to play with. So that flank from Psychots, the way he was able to position in that bush to find that opening amongst the vision that was controlled fully by Team Philippines was amazing. He found that little gap and he utilized it so well to create that chance.
This is a team that is so patient and calculative in the late game, and Psychot somehow was able to actually, supersede their expectations. This is the X factor that we keep talking about when we talk about these very dynamic, very explosive
Young
teams.
players.
Young players, right? The young blood really shows through. So we have to see in game number 2, in a way, right? Both teams do not have to change anything in the drafts because they have a solid game plan, but now it's up to Indonesia, I think. Do they want to suffer the same painful, slow
Early game.
or do they want to try and take matters into their own hands? We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think we can both agree that in game number 1, the reason Indonesia was able to come back was because of a crazy play by Psychot. If that hadn't happened, I feel like Philippines might have been able to actually take the game pretty easily, like we mentioned. The first 10 minutes was completely controlled by Philippines. So this is where Team Indonesia really needs to think it over. Do they really want to go through that grueling early game again up against Philippines, who are notorious to play that objective game and take it slow? And this time, they're going to have to risk Philippines already knowing how they like to go for these flanks.
Exactly, because for the Philippines, they have a lot of adjustments available for them. They can go for different solutions, different battle spells, as we were talking about earlier. So I think, as you mentioned, if things were going just fine, they had more poke, they can actually use the sniper from Beatrix to just slowly but surely take out those objectives, those turrets, and that's just how the Philippines like to play, right? Slow and steady, but they usually win the race. So now I think Indonesia, they might just go for something even crazier, I think, because there's no way they go and exceed your expectations and then they go back down, right? It doesn't really make sense.
It is a best of 3, so the teams will have time to dissect their mistakes for both Philippines and Indonesia. But I do feel like from the draft, Philippines, like you mentioned, the front to back was the win condition that really shined for them, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the early stages of the game, they were able to give Soriano so much space in that back line on the Beatrix to create all these chances to happen, to siege turrets down like it's nothing, because it's a Beatrix. With the Renner, with the Bennett, clear waves super easily, taking turrets down like it's nothing. But they need to start utilizing that a bit more. They need to start looking for these team fights, I believe, and start sticking to, again, the win condition that has got them so far into that game already. 10 minutes in, complete control. Through what?
Wave
team
control.
fights.
I think wave control is the main issue here, because we see that the Philippines, they use a lot of resources to ensure that they have all that pressure and they can be at the right place at the right time before the Indonesians can. So I think that is something that Indonesians will have caught wind of as well. They will have adjustments to deal with this wave clear now, and we'll have to see. Without that wave pressure, can the Philippines mimic the same kind of domination in that early game?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we jump into game number 2, we're going to take a short break right here. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, because we'll be back right after this.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Itu enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya kok?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable! What a finish!
Hadah, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Itu enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start!
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh Ambusena kok?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable! What a finish!
Hadah, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Itu enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh hujan aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Itu enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh hujan aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong? Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go, Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh Busena kok?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong? Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go, Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa,
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh aku
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngiri-ngiri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid form.
Number one, you saw a lot of regions that are way more developed than others.
True.
There's a lot of skill discrepancies over there, but here, for a match as big as Indonesia, Philippines, well, a lot of people actually predicted a 2-0, but not for Indonesia. So you're already seeing your expectations and your predictions get shattered on the first game. But remember, it is a best of 3. The Philippines can definitely come back and equalize in game number 2. But there's an equal chance that Indonesia can take this game and get a clean sweep over Philippines.
Well, this is what we just enjoy, right? This is what makes the competitive scene so good. If you already know it's going to be a 2-0, if you already know what's going to happen, why bother watching? But now, we
Why?
just have no idea. I mean, we do this for a living, essentially, and we have no clue what's going to happen. I can't imagine what you guys back at home are feeling right now, especially when you're very aggressively, passionately supporting your country of origin.
You know, as casters here, we obviously look at it by the books. The numbers is what we look at it primarily, especially when we're looking at a match as big as this. We predicted Philippines to win in game number 1 based on their draft and also based on their experience. This is a very
Right.
well-experienced team, a team that we've seen compete in a lot of international events, winning the SEA Games, winning the M3 World Championships with this lineup. But without further ado, we're going to jump into the drafts for game number 2. Philippines now on the red side, so there is a swap.
There is a swap, but it seems like the bands are not too far different from each other, actually. If we can see here the Fanny, the Digi, and the Benedetta as well as the Atlas. So it's, you know, I think Philippines are still trying to curb that aggression coming in from the side of Indonesia. And Indonesia, on the other hand, wants to eliminate all these very annoying, very difficult problems, like the crowd control, like the Benedetta. They can be so elusive, especially in the hands of mechanical heroes, right? That is the main concern here, that mechanical prowess that some of these players can bring to the table on the right heroes.
We'll see if they go for their comfort picks again. that we saw earlier on, we did see Soriano pick that Beatrix. It's a signature pick. He's known as the Filipino sniper ever since he picked up that Beatrix at M3 when he displayed the crazy accuracy on the Renner, right? He also went on to get the finals MVP at M3. So whenever you see a Beatrix, especially on this Filipino side, you just expect them to find a lot of success with it. And they did early on. They utilized the Beatrix really well by clearing out the waves faster than the Melissa, not taking those trades, and again, going for that efficient macro gameplay by rotating together as a team. The ube scrap that we've seen so many times before worked up against Team Indonesia. We watched the replay and we saw what happened, what led up to that flank from Psychots that turned the game around. It was when Soriano stole the orange buff, and when he walked down to the mid lane, he did not check the bush. And this is something that I mentioned is very uncharacteristic for Soriano. Usually on the Renner, he shoots at every bush,
Just
he
in
doesn't
case.
leave any bush behind. He tries to open it up, and sometimes even after shooting it, he walks in just to check. And that's the little mistake. That's the little moment that actually ended up being the core, the reason,
Exactly.
the sole reason, I believe, as to how Indonesia were able to come back.
It's definitely the turning point, right? It only takes one moment for you to lose a game where you've been dominating for about 10 minutes. This is why the Mobile Legends is so exciting. The game's pace is insane, and once you lose your tempo, once you lose your advantage, it's a completely different game, and you need to adjust and do things differently from what you've been actually performing for the last 10 minutes. So now we'll have to see. I mean, the Beatrix, man, it's at this point, you see a Beatrix, it's synonymous with the Filipino sniper almost. It just comes to mind. So this is definitely something that the Philippines will try and use again. And we already mentioned earlier that having such a diverse choice of weapons allows the Beatrix to do different things. Burst people down, clear waves, right? Poke people from far away, take down turrets from far away as well. So just like that, it has been picked up. And if you look at Indonesia though, that Farsa ban, I think they're trying to curb
respect.
the range from the Philippines, because that is something that the Philippines absolutely use to their advantage. The kite back and that range advantage to poke down, slowly but surely, the members from Indonesia.
To add on to that, we already know that the Farsa is just a signature pick for Imam in that mid lane, but Indonesia will go for the same pick. You pick up the Beatrix, we'll take the hero that countered that Beatrix, that was able to give the Beatrix so much problems in game number 1. With the Yuzong now picked up, they are going to go for the Iesf as well. And with this Iesf, it does show that they are really trying to stop this Beatrix from being a problem. Soriano on his comfort pick once again, but he's already getting countered by 2 heroes, technically, right now.
With the right item builds, 2 or 3 bolts from the real-world manipulation will be enough to zone away to get the Beatrix low enough that he will be out of the fight. And to make things worse for him right now, these slows, right? The slows here will allow Psychos to catch up with anyone from the side of the Philippines that much more decisively. So the utility game is definitely on point on this Iesf pick.
Agreed.
And if you think about it, I think it's gonna be very difficult for the Philippines to try and dive in towards the side of Indonesia as well. So the kiting game that the Philippines have been abusing so often has been slightly countered by this utility from Indonesia. It's a very smart option.
The Mathilda, though, they're still going and opting for the same pick as game number 1. But like we mentioned, Philippines don't really need to change their drafts. What they need to change, in our opinion, after the game, after we spoke about it a bit, is how they took that game, how they executed their game plan. Because it came down to that 10-minute moment, that moment where Soriano did not check the bush. That moment gave Indonesia a chance to turn the tides, and this time Philippines need to be a bit more disciplined. They need to stick with what works. Don't change the course of action by going for these team fights that are technically, or literally unnecessary with this team composition. They can disengage really well, they can siege very well, but you can see right now with the Melissa ban, Philippines are already changing just a few things.
Are they going to go for the front 2 backs? Because I was about to say, in the previous game, they made sure Brands was having a difficult time. They made sure that Soriano was the one having a great lane. But due to that action, Psychots was able to actually be relatively impactful in the game. despite a very rough early game as well. So maybe I was thinking that they might just change their area of focus. But now with the ban towards bronze here, it seems like they are planning on doing the same thing, just better, just cleaner.
Well, in game number 1, they banned out the Leslie and the Claude. So that means with the Melissa ban, one of those heroes will be left to open. Leslie and Claude, which are both lethal on the hands of bronze, right? And looking at how he played the lane, honestly, I do feel like Philippines might want to give Indonesia the Claude, ban the Leslie, right? Because Leslie will create more problems for them, especially if Brands gets to farm as he usually does. He's so good at playing it slow, farming to get those power spikes. And now we're going to have to see what they go for in the bans right now. And Rashi, what do you think it's going to be?
Ooh. Valentina has been banned away from Indonesia, by Indonesia actually. So Philippines, they won't have that kind of flexibility available to them. So it's interesting to see what exactly will be the solution, especially for that Iesf. Not a lot of heroes can match that mid-range coming in, that long-range artillery and utility. So they might just go the opposite direction and go for something aggressive, something that can just be a big problem, a big kill pressure, kill threat for that Iesf. On the side of the Philippines, though, they go for that Claude ban instead. So Leslie is the option that they would rather face, Mirko.
All right. That's something that I personally don't agree with, right? I expected them to ban the Leslie because in the later stages, this Leslie is going to create more problems for them. Remembering that Philippines already have a taunt, already have some CC, and they already have very good disengage. With the Mathilda, the Claude won't really be able to catch up in a lot of these positions, right? But I feel like Philippines are looking at it in another way. They're looking at that Iesf, they're looking at that Divine Judgment from the Kaja and the Furious Dive, obviously with the Petrify from the Yuzong. All these three heroes can lock people down for the Claw to deal so much damage, and this team fight hero is going to fit really well in Indonesia's composition. So Philippines, they're already changing a few things here now, hovering over the Faramis to go to the mid lane into the hands of Imam. And this will definitely help them because the Faramis was also one of the reasons as to why they weren't able to melt the Indonesian members down.
Not just melt the Indonesian members down, it's also the reason why they lost that fight where they were able to keep, Indonesia was able to keep Brands alive using that Cold Altar. And of course, off the back of a very great play from Brands himself. But with the Faramis in the picture, the Philippines have a lot more utility when it comes to actually actual survivability. They have a lot of saves, a lot of shielding, and now with the Cold Altar, that extra bit, that second chance at in the middle of a big fight. But for Indonesia, having more control on where the Philippines can maneuver around, that might be a better solution. They have banned away the Lapu-Lapu as well, so the dive potential from Philippines is very, very minimal, and we have to see what exactly will be the choice here, because for the Philippines, it seems to be the same thing. Front to back all the way, abuse range, save our core members, and just like that, the answer from Indonesia, Leslie, and now it's the Akai.
Well, now considering that they have these two very vulnerable backline heroes, they need something like the Akai to provide a bit more peel, cover for the team, but Philippines respond with Grok in the jungle for Del Rosario.
What?
We mentioned that he likes to go for some crazy picks sometimes, like the Valentina, the Guinevere as well in the jungle. Well, he's trying to pull off the Grok in the jungle now here in Iesf. Last time we saw it, it was high.
It was high, and it's just a very, very interesting situation here because earlier in the game number 1, we saw that for Indonesia, they had an assassin. Right? And that assassin was critical because in the late fights, you saw that Soriano was just unable to get anywhere safe. He was chased away by the Black Dragon form, and he was deleted by Taz on the Gusion. Now, with an Akai instead of a Gusion, can Indonesia get the same kind of pressure onto Soriano?
Well, that question will be answered very, very soon as we enter the game, Arashi. But this time, I think we can agree that we want to see the best of 3 go all the way.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
this time, me and Arashi will be predicting Indonesia to win, to use the Caster Curse to get the most value out of this incredible series of Indonesia versus Philippines. Once again, as we jump into the Land of Dawn with Taz starting on the orange buff and Del Rosario doing the same on the opposite side.
Slow start for both these junglers. They are tankier junglers essentially, so they are going to be playing a lot more for utility. But I guess Taz on the Akai can be a lot more aggressive, and just like that, you can see that the Philippines, they really enjoy using Villaluna to get a lot of information and just be a big nuisance. And you can see the response coming in from the Indonesian players. The Philippines already dictating what the movements are going to be.
Both teams, again, just fighting for that mid control that is so prio, so necessary now in this current meta. Both Taz and Del Rosario are looking to go for this Lethal Wanderer, but it does feel like Indonesia will have a bit more of an advantage with the faster wave clear in the mid lane. That's the Lethal Wanderer secured by Taz, getting him a bit more XP and gold to play with. So he'll have that power spike very early on, already at level 4.
As we mentioned, the wave clear game is now being a lot more monitored, a lot more managed by the players from the side of Indonesia. They've suffered from it once, they are not trying to suffer the same fate again. So right now, they're just moving around, and I think before the first turtle spawns, it's going to be relatively slow. But as I say that though,
uh-oh, there you go. That's the barrier with a wild charge. Psychos now going to be caught. First blood over to Philippines, but look at Taz. He's able to bring the members back in with a heavy spin. Del Rosario going to fall. The jungler for the XP lane, and Dapda will be forced to flicker out of there. Villaluna a bit late on this rotation to match up against the Indonesian mid laners, but it is still just going to be a 1-for-1.
So 1-for-1. So both teams now holding their own, but this is where things get a bit hairy. The first turtle, where everyone has their ultimates, we have to see who can actually weave in the better team fight.
No ultimate for Del Rosario just now. Taz gonna go for it. Will be able to secure the turtle with a brilliant retribution. Dreams gets knocked up, but Philippines decide to back off. Now Dreams flickering forward, gets the Divine Judgment onto Imam, who's able to flicker away. Psychots has the Black Dragon form, looking for it, just decides to zone the Filipino members here and backs off.
Back away, and we can take a look at how the changes have impacted this Faramis, right? The Cult Altar was used in that fight, and with one single spell, the rest of the team from Indonesia is able to melt down that HP bar. So it really isn't an all-win teamfight solution, but it is very situationally used to help save members from big burst damage.
Now it's a complete change from game number 1. Imam, though, going to be immobilized. That's the damage coming through. Whew. Sniped down by Brands, but the kill will go over to Hijume. Brands sacrificing a bit of gold there in the bottom side, but will still be able to catch up down below to pick up that cannon minion.
With stronger laners on the hands of the Indonesian players, they are now able to actually match the aggression, the fights, the skirmishes from the members of the Philippines. And now you can see that the Kaja pick is just having a lot more impact. This is what they wanted to do in game number 1, but the macro play coming in from the Philippines was able to deny that. That won't be the case for this game though, and now this becomes a contest of proactivity. Who can have the higher work rate, the more versatile maneuvers, and just the more proactive plays.
And this is the reason as to why I felt like the Leslie should have been the one, the hero, to be banned out by Team Philippines. Because you can see, on this Leslie, sure, you're very vulnerable, but you also are really good at actually going at duels up against the Beatrix. I would actually say in a 1v1, it's skill dependent, but Leslie has a bit of an edge. Why? Because he doesn't need to target any of his skills. It's not a skill shot. Meanwhile, for the Beatrix, you need to go for those render shots to actually be able to compete in that range battle.
They have to be careful though, because Soriano has the Blade of Despair completed. It will be a big factor in the next fight. The Turtle is being pressured for both teams, but it seems like the Indonesians will have a bit of a lead in the control game.
Divine Judgment and the Petrify. Imam gonna be able to pop the Cult Altar. Taz against 3 members, still able to secure the turtle. Right now, Psychots jumps in with the Black Dragon form, zoning the backline away. Dapadap gonna be pinned down onto the wall with the heavy spin, and that's Hijume who picks up the killing spree. Everything going well for Indonesia, and everything going wrong for Philippines in the early game of Game 2.
They lose a member to the pickoff, they lose a turtle to the steal. So Indonesia is completely taking over and looking completely different. Is this a momentum thing? We'll just have to see. Hijume with the Ice Queen's wand right now will ensure that the Filipino members need to be a bit more careful, even more careful in how they want to position. They've been getting caught out without that slow as well.
Brands has just been farming up a storm. I really want to take a look at these
Oh.
items, right? It's a good steal by Soriano, but he got full turret gold, clearing waves constantly. He should have more gold than Soriano here with the assist that he got as well. But here in the mid lane, in the bottom side river, Del Rosario going to be chained up again, and that's the pin down with a heavy spin. Del Rosario going to fall for the second time in this game. Dreams with another divine judgment over to Imam, as that's an Ibiru's passion dealing no damage over to Taz, who jumps in again. Soriano zoned away, but the damage coming from Brands, shooting him down. Dapadap finally rotating towards that bottom side, but it's a bit too late once again. Team Philippines falling more and more behind as we go and progress into the game.
The Philippines are having very much trouble trying to manage distance because they're being slowed an insane amount. At any moment, it starts with the slow and then it gets followed up with the divine judgment, with the heavy spin. So Indonesia's pick-off game is going exactly how they want it to. And right now, they also have the advantage when it comes to range and also when it comes to that late game. They have that artillery with the real-world manipulation, and they also have the Leslie that can do a lot of true damage up to 2k in a single hit. And in the late game, Soriano will have a lot of issues trying to get any impact done in the middle of a big team fight.
There's so much CC from Team Indonesia. There's a lot of survivability from Philippines, but they need to be able to utilize that crazy engage from the wild charge. And right now, it just doesn't feel like they are going to be able to. Taz there going for the turtle. That's going to be the real world manipulation that was popped into for Soriano to flicker out. They baited out the Cult Altar and they baited out Villa Luna into the other side of the wall. Mid lane turret going to be sieged down. Brands looking just to poke the Filipino members, but it's a good disengage by both teams. It's still a small victory for Indonesia with that turtle take.
Look at how much movement, how much of a reaction you can see from the Filipino players whenever Psychots is on the map, whenever he makes an appearance. He wasn't even popping the Black Dragon from initially, and everybody was walking backwards in fear of that engage coming through. And when you are so focused like that, you are not looking at Taz with a heavy spin. You are not looking at Dreams waiting for that divine judgment.
What I want to look at is definitely the items here for Brands, because I wonder how much gold he's actually gone this game. So far, he has been left untouched to free farm. And he's dealing so much damage, that's going to be the flicker over to Divine Judgment as well to find Del Rosario. The true damage does its work. Brands picks up the kill. Dapadap trying to look for a re-engage now, but only taunting Taz. Look at the poke put down by Brands. Dream's going to be in the midst of it all right now, as he is going to be able to dish out some damage to zone the other members away. Dream still there with Psychots from Psychots with a petrified to find Soriano, and the furious dive to get Imam low under the tier 1. Gunned down by Brands. It's a 2-0 trade for Indonesia.
Unreal execution coming in from Indonesia right now. We thought that Psychots was the main distraction. He was the one coming in from behind. You barely notice it until it's way, way too late. Let's take a look at that replay right now. The fight was breaking up. There's a lot of action back and forth, and Psychots out of nowhere. The tower doesn't even matter because it's way too low. Indonesia able to actually push Philippines into a very uncomfortable position, and now with all the advantages when it comes to crowd control, when it comes to damage, they are looking at a cruising victory in game number 2.
This is insane.
Unreal.
That's the word you can use for it, right? So much doubt for this Indonesian team after they qualified to represent Indonesia with only a week to prepare right after qualifying. Still able to play super well. And now they're rotating towards that top side. Taz soloing that lord. Del Rosario caught no one there to help him out. Has to use the wild charge defensively and will lose out on a lot of HP. Brand still is able to get out. Has the flicker. They're going to go in for another re-engage here. Just some poke down onto the frontliners. And you can see that true damage, Arashi. I really wonder what the items are looking like right now, because the damage is pretty unreal already in 9 minutes for a Leslie.
It comes with a true damage, and when you're concerned about the true damage, you can actually feel the burn coming in as well. Look at the items, as you mentioned. The Windtalker, the Endless Battle as well, allows him to get so much more burst damage initially, and after that, the Berserker's Fury allows him to dish out a healthy amount of DPS. On the other hand, you can see the Iesf right? Hijumi with the glowing wand, all these tanky members are taking percentage HP damage whenever he's dishing out these spells, and they are absolutely spammable. And the siege game is dangerous.
Villaluna going to be caught in that real-world manipulation. Imam as well, zoned away. The wave manipulation from Indonesia, absolutely phenomenal, as they are going to be able to use the Lord down below to pick up a turret. With Psychot zoning the other members away with a Black Dragon form as well. That's base turret number 1 taken down. Top side pushing in, but Indonesia will decide to just play it slow. Clear out the mid lane and reset.
They have an absolute advantage when it comes down to those siege situations. Having the Iesf, having the Leslie means that you do not have to go and force those fights, because there's no other way for the Philippines to dish back that kind of damage. Soriano is the only solution they have, and at this point, when the only option you have, when you only have a single option, it becomes very easy for your opponents to try and adjust to that. But the Philippines, it seems like they are not willing to completely concede control just yet. They need to be very careful though, because the flank game, that flank game is just so on point from Indonesia right now.
This is what we saw in Game 1, only just the opposite happening here in Game 2. Indonesia having control the whole 10 minutes early on. Philippines with a very similar flanking position here to look for something, but it's going to be a concealed play from Indonesia. And oh my god, Dream finds the Divine Judgment onto the best possible target. Soriano's out. Dapadap has to flicker out, but Psychos chases him down with a passive. Dapadap still surviving here. Only one member taken down, but that might just be the member that Indonesia needs to pick up some more base turrets. That high ground control is no longer available for Soriano. Dapadap trying to go in for some damage right there, but it's actually going to be petrified from Imam. He's going to be taken down. The wild charge in desperation. Villaluna in the back has to back off. It's an absolutely insane game and an insane performance from Indonesia as they knock Philippines down to the lower brackets.
How? What? Oh my, we have no words left right now. How was that possible? That is insane from Indonesia. The awareness to know where are the members from the Philippines, who to target in the middle of everything against a team as patient, as disciplined as the Philippines. Dream was able to find Soriano, and even afterwards, Psychots just denying that cult altar by going with that Petrify Furious Dive combo. Everything is just going so smoothly for them. It doesn't make sense. How is this possible?
Well, sometimes you ask these questions, and even I don't know
The
how
caster
to
curse
answer them.
has broken, by the way.
They broke the caster curse, but what a performance by an Indonesian team that was doubted, that
Absolutely
was hated,
doubted.
that was not trusted. Nobody, or just a few people trusted this roster, and they definitely sent a statement to everybody, especially the haters, that they're here for the trophy. They're not here just to participate. They're here to conquer. And so far, up against the tournament favorites in the Philippines. We're going to take a look at the replay first, though, as to what happened, Arashi, in the highlights. I am still, honestly, quite speechless myself.
I think that the Philippines, they had a different game plan from game number 1. But for the most part, it's all pretty similar. So Indonesia made adjustments, and I really dare say that for the Philippines, look at their composition. It really isn't that much different. They only have a Grok as a different pick and a Fredrin, of course, in different roles. But the utility game from Indonesia, the range they can abuse is just insane, man. The Iesf pick, call me biased because I'm a Iesf player, but I think it's an absolutely strong hero at this point in time. The utility is just so good. And right now, with the increase in the slow amount, even without the Ice Queen's wand, you see that the Filipino members are constantly getting caught out. And with the Kaja, with the Akai, there's just so many tools available. And we talk about this a lot. You cannot be one-dimensional when you're going up against these top-tier teams. They will adjust to your single tool of the trade and maneuver around it. And Soriano felt all of that completely, man. Everyone is out for him, and he is constantly getting pressured, getting picked off again and again.
My goodness, this final fight by Dreams. His name is Dreams, but this game, he is the Filipino nightmare.
And that's
what
pretty good.
A performance with the Divine Judgment with 2 games on the Kaja. First game, Even we questioned that Kajarome wasn't really able to do much early on, but this game he certainly showed why it's such a good pick as a roamer in the early stage with a team that gets to pressure early on, right? Except for the Leslie, every single lane has a bit more pressure, has a bit more kill pressure, and just overall a lead. Even in the jungle, Akai clears faster than the Grok, securing a lead early on with level 4. And Taz, can we just give Taz a bit more appreciation? He did not lose a single retry battle up against a world champion. Up against the Filipino champions. That's Del Rosario, Wise from the Philippines. But like you mentioned, Rashi, this guy's the main man here. The utility, the damage, just take it all. Hijume was a perfect Eve in this game.
Zero deaths, doing all utility and providing that extra bit of catch or enabling for the rest of the engage. So it's a bit of a two-layered engage, and it's just so difficult to deal with. The player spotlight, though, is going to be Dreams on that Kaja. Only a single death, despite being one of the more aggressive members from the side of Indonesia. And when your engage tools are this solid, are this dynamic, you don't really have to do much. Everyone else needs to just follow up at the right time and the right moment, and they are just set up for success. So Dreams, this is the impact he's able to bring for his team. And as we mentioned, I think it's just a matter of adjustments. The change from the Indonesian roster, or the Indonesian composition in game number 2 is very visible, and you can see instantly the difference in the performance, especially in that early game.
Lower brackets for Philippines. This is a scene that we have seen a few times before for the Philippines, right? Climbing their way from the lower brackets, but here,
none of the main carries have a death from Indonesia. That is crazy.
Rans, Hijume.
We can also talk about how Faramis, right? Same pattern. The team with the Faramis actually starts losing a lot of steam in the early game because the Cult Altar allows you to be a bit more aggressive, but at the same time, if you don't have the damage to back it up, then you're just allowing your opponents to just hit you more times before you get taken out. I think that is something that a lot of teams need to take into consideration. It is no longer a prio pick, it is a situational pick that can have a lot of value in the right situations.
I think again it comes down to that gold lane, right?
Yes.
The Leslie was so good. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to throw it over to our host to take it over right here from the caster desk. Let's see what he has to say.
Oke, kita sudah bersama Brans, perwakilan dari tim Indonesia yang sudah memenangkan game pertama between Indonesia and Filipina on first match of today 14 World Esports Championship. Brans, gimana hari ini? Expect nggak hasil seperti ini?
Pastinya ya kita kan udah latihan kayak gimana ya, jadi kita juga expect lah pasti bisa menang lawan Filipina, soalnya ya gak ada libur segala macam, kita latihan benar-benar fokus buat match hari ini dan kedepannya ya alhamdulillah bersyukur.
Dari strategi yang kamu rencanakan bersama teman-teman, apakah semuanya bisa tereksekusi dengan baik?
Alhamdulillah hari ini bisa tereksekusi dengan baik melawan Filipina, cuman kan ini namanya turnamen panjang ya, kita tetap harus fokus ke match-match kedepannya.
Adakah lawan yang ingin kamu jumpai dengan teman-teman untuk nextnya, atau siapa yang paling pengen dijumpai?
Ya paling ya tetangga-tetangga kita aja, Malaysia kan ada mantan coach satu juga, dan juga Filipina kita pengen ketemu lagi lah di game final.
Alright guys, itu tadi dari Brans ya. Sekali lagi congratulations bro for winning the first match of today. So we will have a short break, so don't go anywhere. Still on Iesf 14 World Esports Championship Bali 2022. Thank you.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh ampun aku.
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh ampun aku.
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong? Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Hadah, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong? Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Drama terus. Nonton nih komedi yang nyegerin, lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu, mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya kok?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Hadah, drama terus. Nonton nih komedi yang nyegerin, lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu, mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Itu enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong? Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong? Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin, lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu, mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh Lamborghini kok?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Hadah, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin, lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu, mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh aku
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh aku
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Mlbb.
Mana nih tuh Hussein aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh aku
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
enak banget. Coba Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalika circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh aku
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong!
Mau.
Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy. Mau dibikin ketawa? Mau dibikin mewek? Mau dibikin ngeri-ngeri sedep? Mau dibikin kaget? Mau dibikin penasaran? Mau dong! Di sini gudangnya informasi yang bikin kalian update gak kelar-kelar setiap hari. Ini baru Trans 7.
Apa ya? Makanan yang harganya receh tapi enaknya mantul.
Banyak pengen loh, ini dia. Menu receh, harga receh, dijamin enaknya mantul.
Enak banget. Coba, Mel.
Apapun yang kamu pengenin, di sini referensi lengkapnya.
Ada yang ngiler.
Jajan terus bareng makan receh dan enaknya mantul. Ini baru Trans 7.
We are getting the grid forming here at the Mandalay circuit.
Musim balap motor 2022 telah usai. Namun jiwa petualang untuk memacu adrenalin di atas roda 2 masih terus membara.
Away we go in Indonesia. Oh, what a dramatic start.
Mendaki gunung lewati lembah,
Baru mulai belum apa-apa, udah terjebak motornya.
menyusuri hutan, bahkan pelosok daerah yang jarang terjamah.
Sangat ekstrim dan sangat menyulitkan waktu.
Dengan latar belakang alam yang bersahaja
Stunning island of Lombok.
Mana nih tuh lampunya aku?
dan cara berkendara dengan kearifan lokal.
Can you believe it?
Banyak rintangan dalam sebuah perjalanan.
And the bike's on fire.
Terjatuh adalah pelajaran.
Goodness me, that was vicious.
Kembali bangkit sebuah keharusan. Deru petualangan tanpa henti, bertualang di negeri sendiri.
Unbelievable. What a finish.
Aduh, drama terus. Nonton nih, komedi yang nyegerin. Lucunya gak habis-habis. Ngelospol. Capek hati drama mulu. Mending dibawa happy.
Keto ban from Namibia is something very, very interesting. We've never seen a Paquito ban in the first phase so far in this tournament. So there's definitely something that Namibia has on Vietnam. Maybe it's possible data from their scrims where Namibia lost perhaps to Vietnam on that Paquito. We'll see. But Vietnam just prioritizing the ban towards that Kaja. Just like yesterday. They were actually the ones who played the Kaja and who lost on the Kaja in the mid lane though. So, Momo-chan, there are three possibilities right now that we've seen in Iesf 2022 for Kaja. Mid lane, roamer, and jungle.
Yeah.
Dreams was able to get a win on the roam.
On the roamer role. Yeah, I thought if you talk about the first match just now, I just think that it's not that wise to take out Kaja, you know, to let your enemy take Kaja as the first pick. I think it's just
very expensive.
With the divine judgment, it has a lot of potential to be done by Kaja. So I think it's quite unlucky, you know. But yeah, let's see. It's gonna be the next band coming from Namibia. It's Martis.
Ooh, Leomord is open. Momo-chan, the Leomord is wide open here. We'll see if they want to pick it up. They go for the Akai instead, Momo-chan.
Okay, they could pick this Akai or maybe another hero for Namibia, but Akai as a first pick for Namibia. Meanwhile, Vietnam, they has a chance to get Leomord, or maybe if they want to, they can pick out this Diggy. Okay.
I think this works. If they go for the Diggy and the Leomord, two
So
very
it should
prior
be
heroes.
a babysit gold lane.
Should be.
Possibility,
but
right?
They go for the Benedetta.
Wow.
Though, with the Diggy. But yeah, maybe because they've already picked up that Diggy, they're not really going to go for anything. They're not going to go for the gold laner first, right? They already know that with this Diggy, whatever they choose later on to put into the gold lane will always be winning because of this Diggy that's going to be constantly in the gold lane. But Momo-chan, yesterday we saw the Luoyi, we saw the Vixana as well.
Yeah.
And it did not work out. We saw two Vixanas yesterday from two different teams.
Yeah.
And both lost. 0% win rate on this Vixana. And currently they're hovering over. They just lock it in. The Hylos, that should be the roamer for Namibia. A very interesting pick, as again, that stun will be completely nullified by the Diggy. The eye for an eye as well from Benedetta.
Yeah. But I think Mortizi, he's very confident with his pick, with the Luoyi, with the Vexana pick here. But the thing is, the engage it should be totally different, right? If you compare to the first day, it still has like 0% win rate for this draft from Namibia. So they have to bring something else to us with the same draft like yesterday.
There's already a difference though from Team Vietnam. They really, really enjoyed playing the Carmilla. But Joga this time will just opt to go for the Barats. First picking it here, well, last picking it in the first phase.
Okay, but going into the second banning phase here, there's not gonna be Leslie be picked by Namibia. They can just ban out all of the gold lane here.
They
but
can.
Like maybe Clint,
Popo, and Koopa, those are the two heroes.
Yes, even though it hasn't worked yesterday, but it might be work for today. But there's no Cloud as well, since Vietnam, they also haven't chosen their own gold lane here. We still have a lot of options such as Melissa, or maybe Popol Koopa, or even Beatrix.
Yeah, the Beatrix has been a favorite here in this tournament. We've seen it many, many times.
Yeah.
The Ruby respect ban.
Ooh.
The pick that we spoke of earlier on.
Because Vietnam almost, actually Namibia almost giving some pressure, you know.
Oh yeah. They had
towards
the Ruby
Cambodia.
definitely had an impact in the game, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the first pick. Wow.
That's
but
right.
now we're gonna see the final ban is gonna be the Iesf respecting Vietnam. But like you mentioned, that's his name, right? Beatrix. Favorite. Picks up the Beatrix now. Oh, it's
Oh,
still gonna
another
opt for the
export. So actually, this draft is like, you know, the combination between the game number 1 and game number 2 yesterday. It's interesting because
They're learning.
Yes, we will see. Maybe there's something, you know, different approach that Namibia will bring to us for our first game. Export for Slicer for sure. And who is the
I think it's going to be
gold
Popol.
lane?
Yep.
There you go.
That was the response yesterday from Namibia when Team Cambodia picked up the Beatrix.
Beatrix,
They went for the
yes.
Popol, trying to win out in that lane, but now with the Farsa,
Ooh.
that's definitely going to be a bit of a hassle to deal with for this Popol and Koopa that's going to be outranged completely by, firstly, the Feather Airstrike, secondly, that Renner Snipe.
Okay, maybe the ultimate snipe as well coming from
Exactly.
Leslie. I think it's gonna be a little bit troublesome, but still with the comfort pick.
Hold up.
Still with the comfort pick from Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see something different from this team.
I'd
right?
like to see what they've learned, right? After yesterday's loss against Cambodia, a very aggressive Cambodia. Can they now actually play aggressive in
it.
the early stage
That's
and fix
right.
it? Because they have the Popol, they have the tools necessary to control this early game, and we'll see whether or not they're going to be able to do it here up against a team that are so good, actually. That is so good at holding on and weathering the storm.
Vietnam almost brought to us to the third game yesterday.
First third game.
Yes, I know, right? Because, you know, Malaysia, they almost got shouted down so many times by Vietnam in the second game, but after maybe some minor mistake from Malaysia, they finally beat it with 2-0. But here we go for the first game between Namibia versus Vietnam.
Let's see. Both junglers opting to go for the opposite route here. Joga on the purple buff. Meanwhile, you can see Numeraholic on the orange buff. And as we mentioned, wait a minute, bottom side, the King
Ooh.
caught here in the 1v1. Slasher VT almost solo killing the King, who's still able to get out with the dashes and with a successful cut. That isn't too bad, but still, that's a lot of HP lost.
Actually, it's a high risk though, actually, for the King because, oh, and suddenly Numeraholic got beaten in the mid lane. And it's gonna be a little bit, you know, because it's the jungler. It's the jungler.
Oh
and
no, the purple buff.
Yeah, and the jungler from Vietnam will lead maybe like 1 or...
He's winning actually in the trade here. Bottom lane in the XP lane. The King going in for a kill right there on the bottom side, but look at this up top. It's going to be the Detonus welcomed by Joga. Caught in, stunning 2 members down for another kill over towards MDH's, Vietnam's MDH.
They're looking very, very low for more TZ and also NT.
So far the game is looking to be